Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Grow Rogue podcast. Today I'm joined by Hugh Massie, who's the CEO of DNA Behavior. Hugh is a visionary founder and entrepreneur, but he is also an accomplished CEO and executive. In fact, he was recognized as one of the top 100 CEOs in the state of Georgia by Titan 100. So Hugh and I had a great conversation about the difference between growing and scaling and what he calls the difference between 2x optimization and 10x transformation. A ton of great lessons and insights from Hugh's experience leading a behavioral analytics firm with a goal of reaching 1 billion users in the next few years. I know you're going to enjoy this episode, so please stick around and watch the whole thing. Make sure to like and subscribe here on YouTube and share this with a colleague. All right, Hugh. So yeah, thank you for doing this. I want to launching right into things, Hugh. You are a Titan 100 CEO. Do you mind explaining what in the world that is and how you came to have that title?
So there is a program called Titan 100. So it's like an organization, and what they do is go and it's something that you have to be nominated for, and then there's a very detailed application process that sort of takes you probably a day or more to do, and you've got to have professional input and helping. But what they're doing is identifying 100 leading CEOs in Georgia. So I'm a Titan 100 in Georgia. So I'm one of, the lucky 100 CEOs that are having a huge impact in an industry and changing an industry. Maybe leading it with revenues. And also doing things that are beyond the business. So having an impact that's with people that are beyond the business. So that's really the what the Titan 100 program is all about. And in fact, I got nominated for a second year. So I'm just going to start the second year of that this year. So, it's really a group of leading CEOs from all sorts of background types of businesses in Atlanta, not necessarily founders, from at an entrepreneurial business. That's what I am. But there are others that are the leader of, some pretty huge companies that are Georgia based, that are doing some amazing things. So that's really what the program is. So there's a degree of, I suppose, Reade, there's a degree of accomplishment as a leader. I think that's what they're really focusing on, but you're also leading beyond yourself.
So this is something that I've wrestled with for years, right? So you are an entrepreneur, but you are a CEO, right? And I think that those obviously you can be one and the other. But some are very definitely one or very definitely the other. A good example, we had a guest on the podcast a few months ago, and to his own admission, he said, I'm a professional CEO. He was brought in by a private equity firm.
Yeah.
He was installed as the CEO, and he's been a CEO at other businesses, and he did not found this business. He gives a lot of credit to the founding team. He has a specific role. It's, in my opinion, it's really difficult to be both. How have you been able to, toe that line between entrepreneur, which is associated with, being a visionary and an innovator and all that kind of stuff, and, being more of the, not the Steve Jobs, but being the Tim Cook, right? The CEO. How do you balance both of those?
I think that you've hit a very interesting point, Reade, and there are people who are entrepreneurs in the sense that they see a problem out there, they design a product or solution, and then they, raise some money, and then they go out and maybe not always raise money. It could be their own money, but they then go out and pursue that vision. That they will sell the early concept, and usually those people are fairly resilient. That's one of the things that we've measured in our system: risk takers, creative, competitive. But then when it comes to scaling a business, which is the other side of this, once you get beyond a certain point, and that could be 1 million of revenue or 10 million, but usually around 10 million, certainly, you need to start having more organizational structure. And not everybody's up for that. That's not always what the initial creative ideas person is great at doing. So that's where they've got to, somebody else has got to come into the business to help stabilize it, to put systems, processes there, to build consistency in, and I think importantly also to manage people, because a lot of the time the entrepreneur is not great at managing people. They might love their team and want the best for people, but it's not how they're wired to do that and to make people feel comfortable all day long. These people are thinking about the next idea and moving to the next thing. And I suppose and sort of setting that scene, how have I navigated this is that I did bring on 10, 12 years ago some people into the team to fulfill those roles. And one of them is today, the company president, but he's almost in effect the CEO. He is dealing with managing the people, looking at the accountability, overseeing the finances, the HR. So he's there. So I created space for him to do all of those things. And with my greater role being, if you want to call it, I'm the dressmaker in the business and the designer of the solutions, and help integrate a solution in terms of the ideation of it with a larger customer. But thereafter, everything else is done by the team. I am the one that's defined the culture, but I've got a team of, if you want to call it C-suite executives around me who totally believe in that and carry that forward. And I make sure that we are carrying it forward. And that's the dividing line. So in a way, I saw it early, what needed to happen to build that organizational structure when we got to that point, that growth point, because otherwise, while again, I believe in employee engagement, client engagement, all those things, but am I, the person that, because I'm the role I'm sitting in, am I the person that someone lower down in the team is just going to come and ask me a question, or when they're struggling, come to see? Perhaps not. They go to Leon in our team, but that doesn't mean I'm not available for it. But he manages the daily team meetings, the weekly team meetings. So I think that's how we've done it. But it's genuinely a partnership, and there's a couple of others involved in that, so that we then operate. It's pretty much like a wolf pack at dealing with everything. But there's some areas where then they take it further than I will, if that helps answer that. That has allowed us to scale, though, as well.
No, that definitely answers the question. I mean, and it sort of confirms this like evolving, ever more supported theory that I have, is that if you don't have that very, very rare combination of both sides of that brain, which I'm not even sure that I have met one that does, the smart move, the wise move, is just to make sure that there's a super competent person in that seat, right? That can do that role. You mentioned Leon performs in our own business. I started the company, but my wife Nikki is now effectively the head of the organization. Internally,
Yep.
we say that she's the COO, which is you probably an analogous term to what you just described your president doing. Everybody answers to her. She manages the details. She leads the team meetings.
Yep.
Exactly what you described. My focus is on designing the programs, designing the services that we offer clients, creating the strategy, leading the content efforts. And it took a while for me to accept that I just am not built that way to be able to do both of those things as well as the business needs me to do them, right? I could maybe get, I mean, I did. You get to a certain point. I'm sure you did this as well, right? You're able to get it to a certain point, and then you realize, well, I need to take this thing that I'm much better at, and I need to take that through the roof. And
Yep.
then I need to get this thing, which takes way more time and energy, actually. I need to get as much of that off my plate as possible. And that opens up that opportunity to scale.
Yeah, so I think it's partly is as the founder, and let's say that you're the founder of Reade in your business, even though your wife, Nikki, is the COO. It is about delegating. So the first thing is knowing what your strengths are. On the other side of that, what the struggles are. So for me, I am much more. We keep it simple, much more on the result side of things. But you need some kind of relationship building type person there with you as the integrator if you're going to make it work, because at the end of the day, even though we're in a world today with plenty of AI and technology, there are still humans involved with everything, and that you've got to be able to manage that. And if you're not, as the founder, great at that, and most founders are not, you need to have someone in the business who is. And it becomes, and I was, sort of seeing something this morning. I read a lot of Price Waterhouse research, but it's not just you as the founder giving away responsibility. It's a shared responsibility. And I think that's something that's very important, that, as you can't, as the founder, abdicate the throne and say it's somebody else's problem to go and do that. No, it's a shared problem. It's a shared responsibility. That's important, and therefore you've got to have ultimate trust in the people that you bring into these leadership positions as well. That's something that's very important, and you can't be looking over your shoulder and worrying about what are they doing all day long. In a way, you've got to get it to everybody knows what to do, and they're doing it. We're not managing kindergarten at that level.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And I think you're right. Probably the best run organization is one where the load of management is the lowest, right? Because you filled the team with really competent people that take ownership of their role, and you create a structure where the thing that they're doing supports the next thing, right? It moves the machine in the direction it's supposed to go, and then leadership just keeps it all aligned.
Yeah.
At least that's what we've learned. A lot of the guests that we've had on this show have confirmed. Side note, Hugh, this whole thing is really just a ploy for me to be able to learn from people that are a whole lot smarter and more accomplished and experienced than I am. And I figured it was cheaper than going to business school, and so you get to be my professor for the day. So
Well,
thank
why
you for
not?
this.
Why not be direct about it and put it out there? And I
That's right.
think that, it sounds like you've been learning a lot. You've been a good
I've been,
student.
well, it's like a filter. A lot has gone in there. Some of it has made it into my actual long-term memory. So that's fun. So I want to. I feel like we can go, two different directions here, and I'm greedy, so I'm going to choose both. One of the directions I want to go is I do want to learn, where you described your leadership style, right? You described how your organization is structured. Where are you going from here, right? You've kind of reached that point of scale, and we talk a lot about on the podcast about the difference between growing and scaling. How would you differentiate the two, growing and scaling?
Well, I think that's an interesting. I don't know that anyone's asked me that question, but I'll take it as is and put my explanation on. I think that most people think about growth in a very linear way, and let's say your company's at $50 million or $20 million, $10 million, doesn't really matter. Okay, let's grow 10% next year. right? Or 20% next year. And, a lot of people would be happy with 20%. And then we'll think about, can we do it the year after? That's reasonably linear. And to do that, you can do that, a lot of that, Reade, by what I call 2x optimization, just improving efficiencies here and there, moving a few people around, tweaking a product, getting another channel partner in place, being more efficient, streamlined in how you do things. And that's one approach. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but scalability, in the way I think about it, is going more mass scale. And how do you think about this in terms of 10x? And what do you need to, what do you need to do to 10x your business from where it's at today? So, if your business is at 20 million, well, what have we got to do to become 200 million? Or if you've got X customers, 1,000 customers, how do you have 10,000 customers? If that's what it is, and therefore there's a whole lot of different thinking and steps that need to be taken. And in fact, maybe you need to strip some things out of the business, look at the customer mix, the ideal client or customer, and make some fundamental changes. Now, to put a story around that, and I think you're going to bring it back to me, is, well, have I done that? And at the end of 2023, we were in December 2023. We during that year, we'd launched a new technology system, which was just a rebuild of what we had, but to be much more enterprise scalable. And then I said to the team, well, okay, we've had 2.5 million or so people complete profiles in our system. That's pretty good. It's nothing to be sneezed at when you take the price of them and the value of it. But what does a business look like if we had 1 billion people? And because the thing that one thing I learned was, in sort of exponential thinking, if you want to make $1 billion, you've got to impact 1 billion people. Now, I've never set out on the path to have to necessarily make $1 billion, but I think I'm on a path of, how do I maximize my potential and of the business, or put it on a track to do that, but do it in terms of the human impact. So how do I impact 1 billion people? Well, we're not going to get 1 billion people through our profile system actively completing it, right? That's going to take a long time. Even if you treble the numbers every year, it takes a long time to climb to 1 billion. But with AI, we can do it because there's no friction. So we'd already, in a sense, built the maths and the algorithms to do it some years before, but we never pulled the trigger for varying reasons. But we executed last year, and it's just come online now, an AI-driven process that completes the profile without a person having to do it. Now, that removes a lot of friction. So if you imagine a wealth management firm, they've got 25,000 families, and one firm here in Atlanta has got 25,000 or so families. That's 100,000 people or so as clients. 3,000 of those clients have done a profile with us through the system. 25,000 families, and they've got as clients, and then they've got prospects, right? So let's say they've got 50 to 75,000 prospects. Well, you multiply all that up, that's probably, in their realm, that's 500,000 people. Would that firm like to be able to know, engage, and grow all of those people and take them from, a prospect, convert some of them to clients, serve them properly, give them a hyper-personalized experience? Absolutely. We can do that in one fell swoop with a digital scan. This doesn't need years of profiling and whole operations teams to be hired. It can be done bang. That, to me, is scalability. And it changes the game. And then you have to look at it and say, okay, how do I change my business model to do that? Right? So that's, and that comes down to pricing and how you're going to offer the service. So we've had to work through all those things. But you can see, and because I saw a long time ago that if you're in the we've got profiling business, most people think, oh, well, that's coaching and training. Yeah, that is one element of it, but it's a small element. and an important element, but it's a small element. And really the bigger element is, how do we engage a lot of people? How do we help improve the sales function and the marketing function of these businesses? And, you're a marketing guy. I believe businesses should be marketing led, and that's around the positioning, the marketing processes, the what's offered, how it's communicated. Sales becomes pretty easy when that's all set up. And with hyper-personalization and being able to put a tailor-made suit on any person from the first second of interaction, that's the name of the game. And we can do that. Even now, our next evolution, Reade, there will be an avatar sitting on the website, and he or she Jean will ask you A, B, C, D question. The profiling will go on, and now the solutions will be designed automatically in real time. And then the right people will show up to serve you, right? Based on style. That's mass scalability. I've dreamt that for the last 20 years and could see it coming along, but technology was never in the place to do it, even though I kept saying to people, you can do this. But now it can be done frictionless.
So do you, to me, this is the great skill of the entrepreneur, the visionary, is to be able to see something in the face of being told that that's not possible, and having it not distract you or discourage you at all, because I believe that those visionaries, I just think we can see a little further into the future, and one has to have that irrational optimism and irrational confidence that no, it's there, it's coming. I know, I can see it. You've done the math, right? You did the research. You actually had solid backing to believe that it was coming. But you said, and I knew this for 20 years, AI was not, it was science fiction. So how'd you deal with that, right? How'd you, because surely you got a lot of those, okay, Hugh, sure we'll do that, right? How'd you kind of push through that and keep building, right? Without that being immediately available, because that's a long time to wait, right?
It's a long time to wait, and in a way you have to be incredibly patient. But of course, an entrepreneur is not patient, right? By nature, we are the most impatient people in the world. But if you're a pioneer, and I suppose that's one of the behavioral factors that I'm strong on, and you're competitive, but you're also very determined. You're prepared to, if you think about it, going in the old days, in the 1880s, going across America, you're prepared to hack your way through the forest and the mountains and whatever to get there. And there's going to be a lot of deviations on the way. That's what you have to be. There has to be resilience. But underneath that, there has to be a reason that you get out of bed each day, and the only way that I started this journey, which was in Sydney, Australia, from a wealth management business, and prior to that I was a CPA, was an ultimate belief in hyper-personalization, and my purpose being to help people become self-empowered. And when I realized what that was around being able to optimize their behavioral talents and their financial behavior, nothing was going to stop me until I globalized that. And I went back to my young boyhood dreams of I wanted a global business. Now, I didn't know what that was because I didn't have anything. But this all came from a clean sheet of paper. When I realized what this was going to be and connected the dots, then there was going to be nothing that would stop me till I did it. Right. And in a way, even though, yes, I've become a Titan 100 CEO, and there's, I suppose a lot of training, development coaching that's gone in to get me there, and self-belief, and piece by piece, we've done better each year. The unleashing, to be honest, Reade, is coming now. And, I don't think everything should be AI in the world, because I think that human involvement is important at the right touch points. But AI allows us, in the way we know it today, allows us to more easily do a lot of things we couldn't before. And, from my business, I would have thought not making AI a centerpiece of it some years ago. But absolutely, I can see the opportunity to leapfrog the marketplace with it and at a far lower cost, right? You think about it that people are used to paying minimum $50, if not $100 for a psychometric profile that's done once and put in the bottom drawer. We can do this, at a 95% reduction of that and make a lot of money, right? And have a lot of impact. And I think that's what part of scalability is as well, right? So we can change the cost structure of this, the broadening of the impact, and the quality. We still all the original products we built are still relevant and there and are being used. And in fact, what I saw is, and we've seen it now, more of them are getting used than ever, but we just got more AI-driven stuff happening on top. And it's taken 20 plus years to do that. It's a lot of resilience. So I've been ignored. I've never been laughed out of a room or anything like that. But I think it's more been people saying, "I'm not sure we can do that right now," etc. Another priority comes up, but this is becoming the priority.
So then, what does the next few years look like? So the organization is in scale mode.
Yeah,
we're trying to reach a billion in terms of the people served, right?
Yep.
The profiles created. What does that mean that you guys are going to have to do? And feel free to get tactical with this. A lot of our audience members are very interested in the specifics behind, you mentioned being a marketing-led organization. Obviously, that resonates with me and a lot of our audience. What is that going to mean tactically for your organization if scale is the goal?
Yeah, so I think that the first thing is for people to understand is that we have the technology system there and built. Now, of course, to house all that data over time might require some expansion of the technology underneath, but it's not really a build. I mean, all of that sits there on Microsoft Azure. That's really just contacting them and saying we need another server and those kinds of processes. So that part's done. I think that over time we will have more people in marketing, in data analytics, working on the business to help, to bring home the predictive analytics that we have with customers. And I think some of it comes with solution design. So while we're very big on personalization, we want our system to show up in our clients' platforms the way in which they want to see it. And that's really where therefore there'll be more sort of technology orientated people on our team to help connect our system to other systems. Now, a lot of that just happens anyway because we've built APIs, connections to Zapier and other type programs. So there's actually 7,000 integrations, but there is a touch point to operationalize it. It's not a lot of work, but there's a touch point to operationalize this mass scale, inside another company. But that's probably where the expansion's going to be. But I would say that our team, at the moment it's around 50. It's actually gone down a little bit because of the AI. We rejigged some roles, but I never see it being more than 100.
Okay. And is the goal to build for an exit? Is that, or is it to become a multi-generational business that,
I've got two children at 14 and 12. I haven't been building the business. They'll get the fruits of it, I suppose. But it's not necessarily a business for them to come and work in, every day or anything like that. Because I don't know. I mean, I know their temperaments, but I think there's a long way to go before they'll be ready for that. And I think that I started my time as a dad a bit later, so I think that there will be an exit, or there will, because I sort of put myself on the track of I'm doing everything I can to live to 120. So work backwards and think, okay, I might miss the goal by 10%. So I'll live to somewhere between 100, 105, maybe 108, do pretty well. So I want to be in this a long time. I'm not even halfway there yet, right? But I think that we would expand the senior leadership team, with the right incentives to take it further. And if the right opportunity is to sell it and that's the right thing to do, we'll do that.
Yeah, I think we are entering into a phase of, and look, this when I even use this term, it risks sounding political, but it's a phase of American capitalism, I think, which is going to be largely driven by acquisition and private equity and things like that. I think for probably every founder that I've spoken to that is building a business for long term, right? Maybe to make it a multi-generational, even just to with no plans of an exit. I probably speak with two that have explicit plans to exit via, the private equity route or, potentially a strategic acquirer. So that has my attention, right? That has my interest. And so, hear you say that if the opportunity comes, we'll take it. That's great. That's somewhat refreshing, right? Because I don't like to have this is my personal viewpoint. I don't like to build with a hyper specific exit strategy in place. I just think it's limiting, right? It can be limiting because the opportunities, I mean, you with all the vision and foresight that you had about the technology that was being developed, you probably did not know exactly what the last 5 years were going to look like 20 years ago.
I think that the thing is that you can have the vision and you can't predict the timing. And now, if what I was doing was buying McDonald's franchises and bundling them
Right.
together, or AT&T
Sure.
stores and stuff like that, which existing products market and or Apple stores, that type of stuff, franchises, you can somewhat predict what's going to go on there, even though there's economic blips. But when you're, designing new products, a new way of doing something, you never really quite know when it's going to happen, but you've got to be in the game the whole time, viable. And private equity can mess you up. We're working with some private equity firms to help them with leadership of their in their portfolio companies and things. But I think that too much, private equity at the end of the day is a form of borrowing money. There is a time limit on it. They want to be out. And there's metrics that have got to be achieved, and if they're not, somebody's ousted. It's a tough game, and they usually want to move on. They've got to retire their fund and send it back to wherever that money came from.
Right.
And that can kill businesses because business could be just now hitting its straps, and then it's got to be sold because these guys want their money out. I think you want to ideally be in a world where you could control your destiny on that. But there does come a reality that you might have to raise capital at some point. But I think the further you can get it down the track before you have to do that, and then be able to do it on terms that are better, that is good. I think that people raise too much money too early is my perception, and don't have enough clarity about the marketplace and what the business model is. Like I was watching somebody present yesterday, and it was a very B2C model, and I think it's a great idea, but they really need a B2B component to allow the B2C to work. I wouldn't give it a cent, right, till they got that sorted out, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that even though the pitch deck looks all good and there's some money rolling in already, I think that maybe that's the accountant side of me that comes out. So I think that DNA, we've never raised any money. I mean, it's come largely from me and, sort of around me, but that doesn't mean that we've built some products where money could be infused into those products and we build spin-off businesses. Mm-hmm. And that's the way for us to do that. That's somewhat
and I think that's, yeah, I think that's the sophisticated, that is the experienced way of looking at this, right? That I think especially for young founders, young entrepreneurs, and I say young, in the first 20 years of their career, right? It's really enticing when there's those offer letters are kind of waved around of a lot of commas, right? And so one can easily be tempted to take some risk off the table. At least that's how they perceive it, right? Take some easy capital, and not realizing the handcuffs that can place on the future growth. Now, again, I'm not against any of these things, for the record, right? I think there's a time and a place for all these things.
And there are certain types of businesses, I think, where that's warranted. If you're in a business that requires a lot of capital, let's say you're in some kind of mortgage business and or a bank, and a small bank and a mortgage business, and you need a lot of capital to deploy around a particular business model. These things that all works. There's other businesses where this does not work, and I think it's understanding that, and I think that people get greedy early, and that can be a problem, or did you say that their identity has got so wrapped up in having money now, and they've forgotten about the longer term future.
I agree. I do. Well, Hugh, I know we're coming up on time, so I don't want to let you go without getting some hyper tactical advice from you, if you'll give it to me, and if you'll give it to our audience. I think you and I really we clicked in our first conversation, in for a number of reasons. One of the reasons was we both have a shared perspective on how to grow through marketing and how to scale through marketing. What's something that you guys have done that has worked really well that you would recommend? And I'm talking about a marketing tactic or a marketing strategy, if you would, if you've got some. What's your best bit of experience?
Yeah, so I think it comes at, there's a couple of pieces. I think there's being very clear about your market channel, where you are different to everybody else, and have got a sustainable difference, right? So like we've got a difference in the terms of how we measure behavior and money, not just risk, but many other dimensions that no one else has done in the whole time we've had the business. So we've built a moat around that, and we can keep on getting better in that, and that's why people buy us. But I think also, so it's having a unique positioning with a strong moat around it and being clear what that is, so that people can't just come and build something else in your space, say in under 3 years or 5 years. Give yourself a big runway. If it's under a year, forget it. I mean, that's not going to work. The second part, I think, is then finding the right partners to partner with you, and that your product becomes part of their existence, and they love it. You serve them very well. You meet all of their needs. And in my mind, that's marketing, is finding those partners that are a long-term fit for your business. And as they grow, you grow. And I think that's very important. And then really the other part would be, and it probably comes back to the culture of your business, being very clear about the experience that you want to create and how that's part of the culture of the business, and make sure that's practiced every day. So for us, the reason that a lot of people have bought or used our system is because I always said that if a behavioral profile is to be deployed on anybody, the person deploying it's got to share theirs with the client or their team member. And if you're not prepared to be open about your own, then you're not being authentic. You're not going to build the right connection. So no, don't bother. And I'll say that to any CEO or team leader that wants to engage. If you're not prepared to do this yourself, don't bother. But if you do, the reward is big in terms of building a very psychologically safe environment. And so they're the sort of the three marketing things. So I would say is, concentrate on your unique positioning, get partners, and then keep very rigid on the culture. And that is probably comes from a belief you had early on when you were building the business.